Welcome to our exciting new podcast, It's a Yes, Making It in Media, where we hope to help you get hired and stay inspired.
I'm Jo Wood, MD of the Media Exchange.
And I'm Debra Sharon from Media Sales Training.
Between us, we've spent several decades helping people build successful media careers. Whether you're applying for your dream job, waiting to hear if your ideal candidate has accepted your offer, or you're waiting for a client to sign off that target-hitting deal, we know that the words you most want to hear every day are, it's a yes. That's why we decided to create It's a Yes, Making It in Media, to see if we can help.
Each episode, we'll get together, occasionally with some guest experts, and chat through answers to your questions. Plus, we're excited to be creating and sharing the Yes List. We'll recommend a book, a blog, video or podcast, which we hope you'll enjoy. And please do email us with your suggestions too at hello@makingitinmedia.com.
Welcome back. This is episode 2, and today we're diving into selling you, how to position yourself in applications, interviews, and everything in between.
This is just so important because everyone is different and people really do still buy people. You could sell a brilliant product, but media always has been a relationship business. So I guess it's really important to reflect your personal brand, both on and offline.
In this episode, you'll discover what hiring managers actually look for in CVs, the interview techniques that get you remembered, how to talk about your achievements without sounding arrogant, and that closing question, the one that really changes the power dynamic.
We've got some great questions from our listeners today. Jo, I guess you've reviewed thousands of CVs and had loads of interviews, so you must really know what works.
I'm not actually sure that you ever do, but I do have a good idea of the basic things that really everybody does need to think about.
Well, it'd be really good to get your take on some of these questions then.
I agree.
The thing that always interests me with salespeople applying for jobs is that the whole recruitment process is their first sales experience. They have ample opportunity beyond their CV to demonstrate their negotiation skills, their closing skills, their questioning skills. Do you think that candidates are aware that when they're applying for a sales job, that the recruiter might be looking for some of those little telltale signs?
No. Okay. So in short, no. And one of the things that I've always done, especially with entry-level candidates, is to make them see and understand that what they're doing in an interview is selling themselves. And that if they can't sell themselves a commodity that they know better than anything else, why would anyone assume that they could sell anything? Yeah. But it's quite interesting how difficult people find it to say, what do you want to know about me?
You always think that a great salesperson is inherently curious. They're going to be really good at asking questions of their clients to discover their needs. So in that interview situation, I guess the interviewer would really enjoy a candidate that was excellent at showing off their questioning skills.
But people are somehow scared about applying, even if they've done that massively to sell media.
Yes.
They're scared to actually apply those skills in an interview.
Yeah.
The word interview instantly makes people anxious because at the end of the day, it is an opportunity to showcase what you do.
Yeah.
And there is nothing better than to be selling yourself. As a recruitment consultant, I've spent my whole career basically telling and helping people to understand that that's what they need to do. And our team spend a lot of time talking to people about what they're going to say and ask at the end of an interview to showcase that they're interested and that they want to know what happens next.
Okay, so every episode we are inviting listeners to send in questions, anything at all to do with getting into media, going through the recruitment process, working and refining your sales process. And we've got a question here from Sarah in Manchester. I think it's got your name on it, Jo. Sarah is saying, I've applied for over 50 media sales roles in the past 3 months. Wow. And had maybe 5 responses. My CV looks good, I think. I've got a decent degree and I'm really passionate about media. What am I doing wrong? Is it my CV, my cover letter, or is the market just impossible right now?
Sarah, I really feel for you. There isn't a very straight answer, but there could be lots of things that will help you. First of all, a good-looking CV. Is it short? Is it to the point? Does it show what you've done and achieved in media? Are you actually applying for roles that you could potentially do? that sometimes can be quite difficult, I think, Deborah. What do you think?
I was just worried about Sarah starting her email by saying she's applied for over 50 jobs, because I was wondering whether actually you're better off to really think about specific jobs that you're very excited about rather than throwing something to the wall.
I don't ever advocate that, actually. I would question whether there are 50 jobs in the market that Sarah's experience would be exactly right for now, but there's a balance. But
Yes.
if I were you, Sarah, I'd work with a good recruitment consultant. No, but seriously, getting the cut through can sometimes be because you're not working with somebody who actually understands where your experience can work. Yeah. And the other thing is, how many of those 50 jobs that were advertised had salaries attached to them? Are you too senior, too junior? If you work with a recruitment consultant, they will know the level you're at, the experience you have, and the kind of character that you are will work in a particular space where others won't.
I was interested also to ask you, Jo, about cover letters, because arguably, I guess, if the cover letter is strong enough, the CV becomes less important. We used to think about cover letters as trying to pop and do something a little bit different and quirky. Do you think that the cover letter can't be generic and it's always got to be utterly tailored to the role?
I think that unless a talent acquisition team has specifically asked for a cover letter, you don't need a cover letter. I don't think anyone reads a cover letter. Yeah. Unless it's specifically asked for and you're going to be scored based on what you've written. Most applications don't ask for a cover letter. Yeah.
Okay.
And I promise you, there'll be one glance at the front page of your CV, and no reading of your cover letter whatsoever.
Well, Sarah, I hope that is a useful answer.
If you've got media sales experience, you need to register with the Media Exchange.
Can't get the seller out of Jo now. Okay, I've got a question here from Priya, who's contacting us. I think she's in Leeds. She says, I'm moving from a client services role into media sales. I've got tons of client relationship experience, but no official sales experience. How do I convince recruiters and hiring managers that my skills are transferable? What do I need to emphasize in interviews?
That's really interesting, Priya. And that is something that as a recruitment company, we work really hard to try and enable people to make exactly the kind of move that you're looking for. In client services, you almost certainly will have had upselling KPIs. You almost certainly will be able to point to things that you have done and achieved that are beyond just intangible, but really recognizable engagement parameters with your clients. Yeah. And those are the things that you need to highlight on your CV. And those are the things that if you're able to get to an interview, you need to work on to showcase what you've achieved. It is a challenge. You need to think of it as almost a new career, but you do have some basic things and experience that you can build on, Bra.
Yeah, I think that's all very true. And I think that a lot of commercial leaders are very keen to make sure that their sales teams are good at retention as well as new business. Quite often a sales team or a sales exec will do a great deal and then move on to the next client and forget about account management. And so a lot of the skills that you've developed in client services, I think, can be incredibly valuable as part of business development. And so it's how you remodel what you've been doing and show that it has a value in a different kind of environment. So I'm wondering whether there's ever an opportunity in your existing company maybe to shadow somebody in a sales function as well, so that at least you can see day to day what that looks like.
The biggest issue that a hiring manager will have with a client services person when it comes to moving into sales is, can you initiate new business? Are you actually confident enough to pick up the phone and reach out to new clients to build new business, which as part of client services, you presumably won't have done very much. So if you have some evidence of anything that shows something new that you did and achieved, that's important. And then can you close? Can you actually win the business? You need to have some kind of evidence. And if you don't have evidence, then if you get in front of an interviewer, you need to show how you're selling you. And if you can close the interview at the end of it by saying, do you have any reservations? What else can I tell you about me? You'll be showcasing your client services skills and then also that little bit of extra that you can bring, that you're not scared to close a meeting in whatever fashion.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Good luck, Priya. We've got a question here now from Tom. Tom says he's got an interview next week and they want to know why they should recruit him and what he has that will set him apart from other candidates. He wants to know how to answer that without sounding arrogant. What do you think, Jo?
I think that an interview is one of the rare spaces where if you don't blow your own trumpet, nobody else is going to do that for you. Yeah. And it is really important that you think clearly about what makes you different. What have you done? What has made you stand out where you are and in your career to date? So 4 or 5 really good examples of things that you personally have achieved, and then things about you that you can bring to their party. And that can be about you personally, interests that you have, things that you've set up outside of work that might be fun things for the team to do, anything that is unusual and memorable and that you can talk about and makes you stand out from the crowd. But in the first instance, the difference will be about your personal achievements, which will be different to anybody else's personal achievements.
I think you're right. And I think if you don't sell yourself, then you don't really give whoever's interviewing much confidence that you'll be able to sell their particular product. So it's a very good test of how authentically you can actually sell the value that you bring. I always think that if you can use storytelling to perhaps showcase an example of a success that you've had, then it feels a little bit more comfortable than just talking about yourself. So maybe being able to quote what a client has said about you or what your previous boss gave you feedback around. It just sort of distances the trumpet blowing. So it's coming from somebody else rather than just yourself.
The other thing that we usually advocate is when you're talking about a situation or something in a work environment where you genuinely made a difference, to keep it concise and interesting, use the STAR method. So what was the situation? What was the task that you actually undertook? What did you achieve? And what was the result? And that just makes you able to answer a question or create a story around whatever the situation was that's concise. You're not waffling.
I think that STAR method is a really good little mantra and a great way of being able to prepare for the interviews. I have to say that one of the biggest challenges that I found when I set up media sales training was that when I was going out to clients, I was having to sell myself. And that felt very different to everything I'd ever done before, which was selling a brand. It was a little bit toe curling for a while because it doesn't feel natural. But actually, every client wants to know why they should make a decision in your favor. And you soon get into the rhythm of selling your own value.
Sometimes selling yourself is about engaging with the interviewer in a way that can be unexpected. So it might be that you find that you went to the same university or you have interest in watching the same television programs. It could be something really innocuous. And those are the things, the sort of softer parts of the interview that you can engage with either at the beginning or at the end when you're talking more about what interests you and what your longer term plans are, that you can really turn around to an interview and say, well, look, how did you get into this? How did you start off? Where did you go to university? What did you do? What other things do you do outside of work that suddenly makes you memorable? And that can make a really big difference too.
As you were talking about the way that you get on with the interview, it reminded me of an interview that I was involved with myself some years ago, where I built quite a nice rapport with the 3 people interviewing me. And their final question was to describe what my greatest weakness might be. And I sat there thinking, well, I've done a lot of work to try and sell my value. I'm not going to now tell them the things which aren't any good. So I said, well, if I'm honest, my greatest weakness is crunchy peanut butter. And there was a bit of a stunned silence for a moment. And I thought, oh my God, I've been completely stupid and blown this. And then everybody sort of smiled and laughed. And actually, it kind of fitted in with the atmosphere in the room. I'm not sure I'd advocate it if they were very, very corporate and very stony silent, but humor in the right place may be quite a good icebreaker.
I think that's really important because it means that they will remember your interview and will absolutely think, oh, Debra, she was the one about the peanut butter. And sometimes it can be the weirdest things that makes you stand out from someone else. I hope we've helped you a little bit, Tom.
I'm just going to move on and just ask a question from a slightly different viewpoint that somebody's raised.
This one's from Rachel from Edinburgh, Debra. She says she's naturally introverted. And she says, can you succeed in media sales if networking events and self-promotion make you feel drained?
I really identify with Rachel because I remember thinking I would never be able to succeed in media because I'm intrinsically shy. And therefore, I think it is exhausting when you are a little bit less comfortable around people all the time, and when many of your colleagues seem to really be extroverts and really good at all of that networking stuff. But I really do believe you can succeed in media just by finding your own rhythm and making sure that if self-promotion drains you, that you look after your well-being and you make sure that you build in rests and times to recuperate and going for a walk if you're at a big exhibition and you're having lots of conversations. But I think that being quiet, being thoughtful, building a relationship with your clients. Clients are of all different natures, all different personality types. So not every client you sell to is going to want a big personality. They may be very pleased to be engaging with somebody who is a little bit more reserved, thoughtful. And I don't think it's a disadvantage at all.
I think there's a balance here. I think that if you are really somebody who doesn't like the big communication piece, it could be that the sales part of media might be more challenging. That doesn't mean to say you can't build a career in media. It might mean that you need to work agency side or in a more of a customer centric background kind of role, than really client facing. That said, the whole introverted thing can be helped a lot by being prepared, and understanding who you're going to meet in the environments that you're going to. I always think with networking, the hardest thing is when you're chatting to one person, understanding how to move on and get on to the next person. I think you can be taught how to do that, and you can have a plan, and understand how to, say, look, I need to go and speak to somebody over there or whatever I need to do. And as long as you know how to manage that, and the more you do it, the more confident you'll get with it. And I definitely know people who I would naturally say are not the most extroverted people in the industry who have gone on to do brilliant things.
I think sometimes if you are more introvert, you generally have developed tactics to be able to deal with that, even in your social situations. And by that, I mean that rather than being the biggest personality in a room, you might realize that you're much more comfortable asking people about themselves than talking about yourself. And that is an intrinsically valuable sales skill. So if you don't love talking or telling your own stories or being a big personality or a big voice, then make sure that before any network situation, you've thought about the kind of questions that you'd like to ask the people that you're hoping to meet. And that way you flip the focus of the conversation and you don't feel so exposed yourself. And I think probably that's a coping mechanism across lots of aspects of life, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you couldn't be successful in a sales role.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. There is definitely a balance to be had there. Rachel, I hope we've helped you a little bit. If your career in media is absolutely what you want, then go for it.
Our Yes List pick for this week is the book To Sell is Human by Dan Pink, which I think is required reading for modern salespeople. Pink's core argument is that we're all in sales, whether we realize it or not. He strips away the sleazy stereotype and shows selling for what it really is, moving people. What's especially relevant now is his point about clarity over information. Buyers have all the data they need at their fingertips, so your role isn't to inform, it's to help them make sense of it. He gives you the science-backed techniques for modern persuasion, from asking better questions to creating clarity. Top takeout? Your job isn't to give clients more information, it's to provide that clarity. In a world of information overload, the salesperson who helps clients make sense of their options will win every time. Check out the link in the show notes.
Thanks for listening to It's a Yes, Making It in Media.
Do follow the show and share it with someone who's serious about getting results in their media career. If you found today's episode useful, we're running a live and interactive Zoom training workshop very soon. Just click on the link in the show notes for all the details. We'd love to see you there.